It was a muggy Thursday morning in Washington, D.C. when the Capitol began to buzz with whispers of something big brewing behind closed doors. A routine congressional oversight hearing had just been scheduled, at least that's what it looked like on paper. But insiders knew this wasn't just another political chess match. This was war. Jasmine Crockett, the fiery and unrelenting Congresswoman from Texas's 30th District, had made it her mission to expose what she claimed was a culture of corruption within President Donald Trump's second-term administration. With viral takedowns, viral tweets, and an army of devoted supporters, she had earned the nickname the People's Pitbull. And today, she was going for the jugular, targeting none other than the sitting U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. Bondi, a seasoned legal tactician and political loyalist, had risen through the ranks with a blend of Southern charm and hard-nosed courtroom grit. She wasn't just Trump's general attorney, she was his firewall. Crockett had been demanding answers for months over a controversial DOJ policy change that critics claimed allowed certain high-profile Trump allies to evade federal prosecution. And now, with the cameras rolling and the nation watching, Crockett finally had her shot to press Bondi face-to-face. The Rayburn House office building was packed. Journalists lined the back walls while C-SPAN prepared for live broadcast. Staffers whispered about what Jasmine had planned. Rumor had it she hid documents, leaked emails from within the DOJ allegedly showing collusion between Bondi's office and private legal consultants tied to Trump's Mar-a-Lago inner circle. At exactly 9 a.m., the gavel dropped. "This hearing of the House Oversight Committee will come to order," barked Chairman Holt, trying to contain the electric tension in the room. Pam Bondi entered confidently in a tailored navy blue suit, flanked by her legal aides. She adjusted her notes, flashed a polite smile, and took her seat. "Attorney General Bondi," Crockett began, "thank you for appearing. Let's not waste time. You're aware of the recent reports involving internal DOJ communications regarding case file 2739, correct?" Bondi didn't blink. "Yes, Congresswoman Crockett. I am. And are you aware that these communications suggest your office consulted with private attorneys before choosing not to prosecute high-level individuals in that case?" "I am aware of your interpretation of those communications, yes," Bondi replied calmly. Crockett raised a folder dramatically. "I have the emails right here, Attorney General. And I think the American people deserve to know whether their top law enforcement official is making prosecutorial decisions based on politics or justice." Gasps rippled through the room. The trap seemed to be closing in. But Bondi didn't flinch. Instead, she reached into her briefcase, withdrew a binder, and opened to a mark tab. "May I respond, Mr. Chairman?" she asked. Chairman Holt nodded. Bondi began calmly. "Congresswoman Crockett, the emails you've cited were reviewed by our office last month. What you seem to have are partial, out-of-context fragments of an internal policy memo, drafted by junior legal staff and never enacted." Crockett frowned. "That's not what this email suggests." Bondi raised a hand. "If I may finish, please. This committee may be interested to know that the same documents you're referring to were recently submitted to a federal judge under seal as part of an unrelated court filing." She flipped to another tab. "And last night, that judge issued an injunction against the public release of those documents, on grounds that they include privileged legal strategy and active law enforcement intelligence." The room fell silent. "In other words," Bondi continued smoothly, "by introducing these documents into the public record today, you may have just committed a violation of federal protective order statutes." The silence turned into stunned disbelief. Crockett's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, Congresswoman," Bondi said, locking eyes with her opponent, "you may have just walked into a trap of your own making." The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. "You may have just walked into a trap of your own making." The room, once crackling with anticipation, went still. Even the C-SPAN camera operator momentarily forgot to move. Jasmine Crockett, normally a firebrand in command of every syllable, hesitated. For the first time in a long time, the courtroom queen looked rattled. Chairman Holt looked between the two women, his gavel twitching slightly in his hand. "Is that a formal accusation, Madam Attorney General?" Bondi gave a crisp nod, flipping through her binder again with deliberate precision. "Not an accusation, a fact. The DOJ filed a request for an emergency seal on documents that were part of an ongoing grand jury review documents, I might add, that contain redacted national security details. Congresswoman Crockett's documents, however, are unredacted. Gasps and murmurs once again erupted around the room. Crockett instinctively clutched her folder, now realizing it felt more like a ticking time bomb. "Objection," she snapped. "This is political theater. I received these documents from a protected whistleblower." Bondi leaned forward, her voice calm but commanding. "And did your whistleblower inform you that the documents were filed under seal less than 12 hours ago? That distributing them, much less reading from them in a public hearing, violates multiple federal statutes." Crockett's voice wavered for the briefest second. "I know. That information wasn't available." Bondi raised an eyebrow. "That's unfortunate, because ignorance of the law doesn't exempt one from its consequences." Across the room, the chairman looked like he wanted to disappear into the wood grain of his desk. He cleared his throat and turned to the committee's counsel. "We may need to take a short recess to evaluate the status of these documents." But Bondi wasn't finished. "If I may," she said, sliding a new folder across the table. "We anticipated this line of questioning. In fact, my office submitted a notice to the House committee clerk this morning regarding a pending motion to delay this hearing in light of sealed filings. That notice was received and logged at 7:43 a.m. Eastern Time." Crockett's eyes narrowed. "That never reached my office." Bondi met her gaze. "It was sent via official DOJ courier. I have the signature receipt here, signed by A.J. Crockett, congressional staffer. Jacob Turner." "Correct." Crockett's jaw clenched. "Looks like we're not just dealing with a procedural oversight," Bondi said, a glimmer of triumph behind her composed facade. "We're looking at a direct breach of process that may rise to the level of obstruction." The media was already typing furiously. Twitter, no X now, was about to explode. Hashtag Bondi Trap and hashtag Crockett Collapse were already trending within minutes. Outside the chamber, political operatives on both sides were scrambling. Crockett's supporters argued that the whistleblower protections superseded any procedural technicalities. Bondi's allies, meanwhile, hailed her move as a masterclass in legal gamesmanship. Back inside the hearing room, the mood had shifted. Crockett, still poised but clearly shaken, shifted her strategy. "If the Attorney General believes this hearing has been compromised," she said, now sounding more defensive than defiant, "then I move that we delay further proceedings until legal counsel can review the circumstances." Chairman Holt nodded. "Motion granted. We'll recess for 30 minutes. Pam Bondi stood slowly, collecting her documents with the deliberate coolness of someone who just pulled off a flawless play. As she walked past Crockett's seat, she paused just long enough to deliver a line only those closest to them could hear. "Next time, Congresswoman, bring your own trap." Back in her private congressional office, Jasmine Crockett stood at the window, arms crossed, watching reporters swarm the Capitol steps like bees to a shaken hive. Her chief of staff, Brianna, hovered near the television where pundits were already calling the hearing a disaster and speculating if Crockett had walked into a legal ambush set months in advance. "This wasn't supposed to go down like that," Crockett muttered, eyes burning with frustration. "They set me up." Brianna grimaced. The envelope was marked confidential, but nothing said sealed or classified. Jacob signed for it. He didn't know. Crockett turned sharply. "And that's exactly what Bondi's banking on, that we didn't know. That we'd fall into her little pit of legal quicksand." Brianna approached with a tablet, pulling up DOJ records. Bondi filed for that emergency seal at the last minute. She had to have known we had the documents already. She waited to file until right before the hearing. Crockett's eyes narrowed. "That's the trap." "Yeah, but it's a dirty one. She used procedure like a weapon. If we can prove intent, show that she used the seal specifically to sabotage today's hearing, we can flip this on her." A spark returned to Crockett's eyes. She turned to her laptop and began typing furiously, drafting a memo for her legal team. "We don't need to fight this in the courtroom yet. We fight it here, in the court of public opinion." Meanwhile, across the river at the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi was in her element. Seated in her sleek, minimalistic office overlooking the Potomac, she sipped black coffee and scanned the headlines scrolling across the large wall-mounted screen. Crockett crumbles in hearing showdown. Attorney General Pam Bondi springs surprise legal trap. Was this a setup? DOJ timing raises eyebrows. Her deputy, Marcus Tolland, entered with a legal brief. We just got a preliminary inquiry from the House Ethics Committee. Crockett's lawyers are pushing back. They're saying the seal was filed in bad faith. Bondi didn't even flinch. Of course they are. That's the only card they have left. Tolland hesitated. They might be able to spin the timeline. Say we baited them, used procedure to kill the hearing. Because we did, Bondi said calmly, tapping a redacted page from the sealed brief. Look closer. That memo wasn't just about protecting DOJ methods, it named 3 foreign nationals and outlined confidential cooperation details. If Crockett had read that part aloud, we'd be dealing with a diplomatic nightmare. But she didn't. No, but she could have. And that's why we had the legal standing to act. We didn't bait her, we protected national security. Any damage she suffers? Collateral. Tolland nodded, understanding. Still, this isn't over. It's never over, Bondi said. But now she's playing defense. Back at Capitol Hill, Jasmine Crockett held a last-minute press conference flanked by her allies. Microphones pointed, cameras whirred, and the crowd leaned forward. I want to speak directly to the American people, she began. This morning I attempted to hold this administration accountable. I brought forward documents from a protected source. Those documents were sealed by the DOJ mere hours before I presented them after my office had already received them. She paused. That's not justice. That's entrapment. Gasps. Murmurs. Our democracy depends on transparency, not secrecy. And I will not be intimidated by political games dressed up as legal procedure. The crowd erupted in cheers. And just like that, the tables began to shift again. Cable news ran dueling narratives. Was Bondi a brilliant tactician or a manipulative schemer? Was Crockett sloppy or sabotaged? The American public, polarized as ever, chose their own sides. Hashtag Crockett Comeback began trending as swiftly as the earlier hashtags had. Later that night, Crockett received a direct message on her secure congressional line. No name, just a note. You were right. She baited you. I can prove it. Meet me. Alone. Attached was a location. She stared at it for a long time, heart racing. It was a parking garage 3 blocks from the DOJ. A whistleblower? A setup? Or the next move in the most dangerous chess game of her career? It was nearly midnight when Jasmine Crockett stepped into the cold, concrete shadows of the garage. Her heels echoed against the slick surface as fluorescent lights flickered above. Her staff had begged her not to go alone. But trust, she knew, was like oxygen in Washington, scarce and easily poisoned. If this was a trap, she needed to spring it herself. A low whistle pierced the silence. From behind a support pillar stepped a tall, wiry man in a gray hoodie and slacks, his face half hidden by a ball cap. You're braver than I expected, he said. Name, Crockett demanded. Just call me Marshall. I work, or rather worked, with DOJ intelligence. Cyber ops. Bondi's inner circle. Why come to me? He tossed a USB drive to her. She caught it one-handed. Because what she did wasn't just a trap. It was premeditated sabotage. She didn't file that seal to protect sensitive data. She filed it because she knew exactly when you were going to present those documents. And she wanted it on record that you violated federal law. Crockett's jaw tensed. How? Digital surveillance. Bondi's team has a shadow tech squad watching certain congressional offices. Email metadata tracking, printer logs, staff badge scans. All unofficial. All buried. But someone got cocky. They left a timestamp in a classified memo showing they'd accessed your office printer queue 2 days before the hearing. He handed her another file, a thin manila envelope with copies of the metadata logs. She knew exactly what document you'd print, and when. So she waited, filed the seal at the last possible hour, then let you walk into the kill box. Crockett's breath caught. That's illegal. Which is why I'm here. I won't be safe after tonight. But neither is your country if this kind of manipulation becomes the new norm. He disappeared into the darkness before she could ask another question. Back in her apartment, she booted her secure laptop, plugged in the USB, and opened the file folder. Scans of internal emails, DOJ memos, and tracking logs, all pointing to one conclusion. Pam Bondi hadn't just outmaneuvered her. She had surveilled a sitting member of Congress. By morning, Crockett had her legal team assemble in a secured room. The evidence was analyzed, verified, and cross-referenced. It was airtight. "We can go public," Brianna said. "Or straight to the House Judiciary Committee." "No," Jasmine replied. "We go to the courts and the people." At the same time, 3 hours later, a joint press briefing was called. Flanked by constitutional law experts and digital rights watchdogs, Crockett addressed the nation. "Yesterday, I was accused of violating a sealed court order. Today, I am revealing the truth. The Department of Justice, under Attorney General Pam Bondi, surveilled my office without a warrant. They weaponized procedure to silence congressional oversight. And I have the evidence to prove it." Reporters shouted questions. Flashbulbs exploded. The country held its breath. Within minutes, the White House issued a terse statement. Bondi would address the allegations in a special press briefing that evening. In her DOJ office, Bondi reviewed the leaked files on her own screen, flanked by top advisors. For the first time since the hearing, she looked surprised. "Who the hell leaked this?" she barked. Tollins shook his head. "We thought the logs were secure." Bondi clenched her jaw. "Then someone inside is playing for her team. No matter. We go on offense. Tonight. What's the angle?" She stood slowly. "Discredit the source. Undermine the chain of custody. And remind America that Jasmine Crockett still handled sealed documents in a public forum. But the surveillance? We'll say it was authorized under a DOJ cyber threat audit. Routine. National security. By the time they untangle the paperwork, the news cycle will have moved on." She smirked. "I didn't get here by being lucky. I got here by being prepared." But as she looked at the TV screen where Jasmine Crockett was still speaking with fierce conviction, Pam Bondi felt something shift in her gut. This wasn't over. And this time, she might not be the only one with a trapdoor. That evening, the Department of Justice was a fortress. The press briefing room was packed shoulder to shoulder with reporters, analysts, and operatives from every corner of Washington. The air buzzed not with curiosity, but confrontation. Pam Bondi entered with practiced poise, her lips tight in a thin smile. Behind her stood a wall of American flags, and to her side, Deputy AG Marcus Tolland clutched a binder of talking points they hoped would turn the tide. She stepped to the podium. "Good evening. In light of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's serious accusations, I am here to clarify the Department of Justice's position and set the record straight." Cameras flashed. Live streams surged. Over 2 million Americans were watching in real time. To be clear, Bondi continued, at no time did this department illegally surveil a member of Congress. The data cited in the Congresswoman's allegations originated from a routine DOJ cybersecurity protocol designed to detect potential foreign interference in sensitive communications. All procedures were reviewed by the Office of Legal Counsel and authorized under standard security audits. A pause. A flick of the eyes. She waited for the press to absorb that. But she wasn't finished. "It is unfortunate," she added, "that confidential documents were leaked to the media, violating multiple federal statutes. And it is even more unfortunate that a member of Congress is willing to spread misinformation that undermines the integrity of our nation's legal system for political gain." Boom. There it was. The hardline play. But as Bondi stepped away from the podium, she felt the press's questions land like punches. "Are you confirming DOJ tracked congressional printers? Was the security audit approved by the Intelligence Committee? Are whistleblowers being threatened?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her job now was to survive the media storm and let the spin do the rest. But over on Capitol Hill, Jasmine Crockett was already moving to the next phase. She stood in front of a row of microphones, this time with bipartisan backing, 2 Republicans and 3 Democrats by her side. She held up the USB drive. "Tonight, I will submit this evidence not just to the Judiciary Committee, but to an independent federal magistrate to evaluate whether the Department of Justice violated the Fourth Amendment rights of elected officials. This is bigger than me. It's about constitutional overreach." And then came her final blow. "In addition, I've filed an emergency injunction to suspend Attorney General Pam Bondi from overseeing any ongoing congressional-related investigations until an independent special counsel can be appointed." That wasn't just press conference fire. That was legal dynamite. Within 24 hours, chaos exploded. News broke that a second whistleblower from DOJ's Internal Compliance Office corroborated the surveillance logs. DOJ cybersecurity memos, marked internal only, showed unusual tracking permissions applied specifically to Congresswoman Crockett's office. Cable news ran wall-to-wall coverage. Did Bondi go too far, and democracy's line in the sand? Social media flooded with a new wave of hashtags, hashtag surveillance state, hashtag unseal the truth, hashtag Bondigate. And then an earthquake. The federal magistrate, after reviewing the USB contents, issued an emergency recommendation to Congress, appoint a special investigator. Pam Bondi's press secretary announced she would take a temporary leave of absence pending legal review. President Trump, normally quick to defend his loyalists, issued a terse statement. The Attorney General is a great public servant, but we support a fair and open review. In political code, that meant, you're on your own now. Days later, Crockett walked through the halls of Congress like a battle-scarred veteran. The scars were real: media attacks, death threats, internal second-guessing, but so was the victory. She had turned a masterful trap into a national reckoning. Pam Bondi's future now hung in limbo, her fate left to special prosecutors and committee hearings. Crockett, once counted out, emerged as a folk hero to many, bold, resilient, and unafraid to stare down a titan of the Trump administration. But she didn't celebrate. She knew better than anyone, in Washington, the game never ends. The players just switch seats. As she left the Capitol one evening, a reporter called out, "Congresswoman, what's next?" She stopped, turned, and smiled. "Next," she said, "we fixed the system that let this happen." And then she walked into the night where a new storm was already brewing.